Kasi nung time na ginawa ko to, yung pag-update ko para sa API connection natin, kaya nagtagal yun ng 8 hours is because ang daming mga bagong variables or ang daming mga bagong bagay na kailangan kong matutunan para lang makapag-create ako ng function that will allow us to communicate with the Sales API. Tanong, tapos ba kayo, na-integrate ba ninyo ng tama sa iOS? I mean, we're able to run it sa iOS or sa Xcode, and did it produce the desired results?
Yung sa user info po, opo.
Yes.
Okay. So that's a good sign because your app is now able to communicate with the API. Now, kaya nga, masyashort lang ako. Okay. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to record this session so that in the future, meron kayong reference on how to add additional function. Okay? Wala. Ito na. Okay. Calendar. Alright. There you go. Okay, so for a begin, we just open the needed resources. Okay.
Hindi ko po nakikita yung screen niya.
Tapos, share screen.
Hindi pa pala.
By the way, guys, if... Ito pala, pinipindot ko pala yung share screen. Record meeting. Alright, eto na. So, eto na, magre-record na tayo. Okay. So, 1, 2, 3, record. Start. Okay. At the end of this conversation, or at the end of this
call is now being recorded.
I'm going to, we should have, there you go. So guys, good afternoon. My name is Michael, and welcome to a session of updating the Bridge plugin. Okay? So, the topics that we are going to discuss today are, number 1, best way to update the Bridge plugin. Number 2, first things first. Number 3, updating the website of the plugin. Number 4, updating the Swift side of the plugin. 5, test it out. And number 6, compile and integration. Okay? Now, setting expectation, this is not a training session to create a plugin. Okay? Next, pod integration or CocoaPods integration to your Swift project is not covered on this session as well, because that is a very, very tedious way and a very, very difficult thing to do. But once you get the hang of the process, you'll be able to. Now, what is the goal of this training session, or what's the goal at the end of this? Number 1, a better understanding on what needs to be done and how to make a new function to interact with a given API. Let's say, for instance, you have to communicate with Diesel or any other client's API. 2, self-sufficiency on tasks surrounding API integration. And number 3, a better insight on the Swift language. Let's make it so that this is your getting your toes a bit wet sa Swift. Alright? Now, to begin with, I am going to Quasar. Okay, so this is the updated version of our app. Okay? So I want, or I need, a version of this app that is okay, so let me just go to our folder. I'm going to download what Jenny or what you guys have shared to me before. Okay. Ito. Alright. So while the download is progressing, okay, let's first start off with the things you need to do. Okay. So first, the best way to update the bridge plugin. So this is our project, right? So we have here all of your. Let's just. So this is our directory structure for our diesel repair app. The second folder is your diesel app. First folder is your in-app bridge plugin. Now, before we begin, we have to build our project. So, okay, here we go. Okay, so as usual, sh install. We have to call this so that we could integrate and start updating the plugin. Okay, here we go. So while this is installing, I have downloaded our Virgin app. Okay.
Sir,
So, yes.
kahit
Ano yun?
saan lang po.
Ano yun?
Ngayon po kasi unauthorized po yung yung
API.
endpoint po. So, hindi namin
Okay lang yun. Why is it unauthorized?
Sa client side po. So,
Okay. So that's a problem to be discussed or to be dealt with later on. Okay? Later on. Kasi right now, you guys have to understand first how to update the plugin. Kasi once you have the hang of this, okay, yung restrictions na yan, it's a different matter altogether. Okay?
Apa.
Alright. So, while it's compiling, let's first things first, know your requirements. So Jenny was able to provide us with a postman of the API that you guys needed to interact with. Tama? So this API involves getting the user's information. Specifically, or at least most of it is, ito. Here we go. Most of it is, getting the user's information. So, upon receiving the postman, first thing that I did is, ano ba yung kailangan? What are the things that is needed to program or to be coded? Okay? So first is the endpoint. Importante yan. Okay? So, I took a list down of that. Next is yung body niya, which is a dictionary. Okay? In this manner, or in this case, the body is basically a JSON request that you're going to push to the API. That will only take in one information, an email of the user. Okay? So, the body is equivalent to dictionary that takes in one information, which is the email. Okay? Next is the header. Upon looking at the header, there's nothing special there. Authorization, wala naman. Body. Okay, so far, so good. Next is the method to which it will be called, which is a post. Okay? So with this information, let's first determine anong input niya. Input to the function is, okay, so the first input is definitely the email, which is a string, right? Second input is most definitely the website. The endpoint. Okay. Third input is what?
The method.
Third input was supposed to be what type of request are we going to do? However, since that is as of the moment hindi siya pwedeng gawing dynamic, let's leave it at that. Okay? So far, we have two inputs. Ano yung output niya? So if we trigger this, okay, if we send this information or if we trigger this execution, lumabas is unauthorized. Okay? Okay lang yan. It's because, number one, okay, we already have something here. It's a message. The API returns API return is this message. Yung pinakauna niya is message. Okay? Now, to the best of my recollection, did you guys forwarded me a sample output of the API nung gumagana pa siya?
Screenshot po.
Screenshot sa...
Yeah, I think screenshot niya, pero I didn't need a screenshot. I needed the actual output. So, ito siya. Ayan, response. Okay, so this is what the API would have given us, right? Okay, so by looking at it, all right, so this is the response of the API. However, hindi natin mabasa siya, so let us first go to yes on read. All right. Let's convert this, and hold and behold, this is the data that the API, if functioning, will provide us. Correct? So from here, makikita natin na, okay, so the data, okay, I find may message din. Tama? So una, tama na yung binibigay sa atin ni API, which is the message. Correct? And the message is in the main body or yung pinaka-root. Okay? What else? Yan. So there's a message, there's a status, okay? And then there's also data. Now the data contains a couple of information, di ba? So from this information, makikita natin na, okay, these are all or most of it is string. Example is ID pala is, let's say for instance, ID is number, okay? Tapos profile is another layer, okay? It's profile, it's another layer of data, correct? Next is email, which is string. Right? So by doing this, we are understanding how the API should function if it is problematic or if it is working. That's very important because when you start coding this, you have to understand or you have to have a bigger grasp of what is required versus what is irrelevant to the whole function. Okay? So far, we already have the functions output, or sorry, the API's output. We also have the inputs of the API. Now let's begin. Okay? So, first we need to begin final process. All right. So, let us go back to our best way to update the plugin, the bridge plugin. So whenever interacting with the bridge plugin, okay, it is very important, or it is easier to build the bridge plugin from with the Xcode, where the terminal is providing us with a direct connection to our project. Okay? Ito na. Yes, let's open VS Code as well. So we're going to work in tandem with VS Code in order to update a couple of things. Okay? So first, let's open a folder, go to developer, go to Quasar, inapp, open. Okay, don't save. Okay, here we go. first thing that we have to do is update the website of our interface. Okay? Let me just get something to drink. Okay, guys. So far, do you have any questions?
Wala pa po.
All right. Ano to?
Sir, actually ano ko yan, na-encounter ko yun kahapon.
Mhm.
Magawa din ako ng
Nag-error.
bago. Kaso hindi ko na pinreceive. Nag-error siya.
All right. In that case, let's use the version state, diba? Okay, so this is the version state of our app, right? And I'm hoping, that this should work. Yeah. Oh. All right. Ayan. Okay. While this is happening, let's first update the website of our project. Okay. So let's open up the new folder. Okay. All right. Let's go to our in-app bridge folder. Okay. So from in-app bridge folder, the very first thing that you have to do is you have to go to source. Okay. Open up source, and you will see there 3 files: the definition TS, the index.ts, and the web.ts, or the web interface. Okay. This is important because you guys are debugging in the browser sometimes, okay? And whatever you do in the browser will directly reflect on your Xcode project, right? And so far it's working. Okay, now to begin with, let's first go to definition.ts. Okay, so from definition.ts, you will see there all of the exported functions that we will have to update in order for us to be able to, for us to be able to connect the website and the switch side of our update. In this case, you can see here, okay, let's say for instance, based on our requirements, we need to have an input function and a return function, right? Now, based on these examples, restore purchase, purchase subscription, is user subscribe, okay? Based on these examples, you will see that, the best example that meets our requirement is purchase subscription. So we're going to use this as a template for our function, okay? By the way, what is the name of our function? So ano pa yung, name of function is get, let's say get user information, okay? Get user info from API. There we go. So this is our function's name. So first, let us copy this, okay? And then let's create a new copy of this here. Okay. And then let's rename this to,
From,
there you go. Ano yun?
yung from po, sir.
Ha?
Yung from po, form yung nabaliktad po yung get user ayan. From API. Ayan po.
Di ba? Alright. Next, ano yung values na kailangan nating ibigay sa API? So we have two things, email and endpoint. Yung endpoint natin is a string, right? So in this case, I will do this. Email, okay, as a string, and also endpoint, okay, and point as a string. Alright. So far, we have declared a header, or basically how the app or how your web will map or will know na itong function na to, it's here. Okay, we have that.
Paano
Next,
naman
we need to, yeah, go ahead.
Paano naman po sir pag get? Like wala siyang body.
Dude, what are you talking about?
Ay, yung 'di ba sir sa pinasa natin email at saka yung endpoint yun yung kailangan niya. Doon para maka-apo. Ay post method po yun. What if po pag get, 'di ba po sa get method wala na po
Okay,
siyang body.
una sa lahat, we are not discussing about get and post. We are discussing about creating the function, di ba? You're jumping, ha? You're jumping jack ka talaga, ha?
Naisip ko lang
Isingit
po
mo
kasi
dyan,
pag ano. Ayan.
Mamaya na yun.
Sige po.
Okay, now going back. So, we have created our first endpoint. Spelling endpoint. Endpoint. Alright? Now, next is, ano to? Export interface. Okay? So as of the moment, we will ignore these, okay, and proceed to creating the actual code for the web. Okay? So we have a header, we copy this, we now go to our web interface repository. Okay? So this file contains the function that will accept data and return data. Now, it is important to know here that kung ano yung ilalagay mo dito, dapat yung din yung lalabas or hindi yung ibabalik yung Swift, yung Swift counterpart niya. Okay? You have to have parity on what is received and what is given back, or what is given back by the function. Okay? So in this case, let us go to, alright, so first, restore purchase. Hanapin natin siya. Ayun, nasa baba siya. So in this case, again, creating parity, we copy what we did earlier. Saan natin ginawa yan? We copied the entire function of purchase subscription. Correct? Because that is our template. Okay? Gets ba? Now, that's what we did sa definition. So, the easiest way is to follow the same process. We copy the entire function of purchase subscription, and then we update it to our desired result, or to our desired or required parameters. In this case, we update the function name, okay, and then we update the parameters of the function. So in this case, copy paste na to. Okay. Copy, paste. All right. So far, so good, right? Next, we update the internals of our function. So, okay, we don't need this. Okay. But as you can see, bakit ganun? Parang nagkakameron siya ng mga errors, di ba? So first, we need to understand saan ba nakikita ito mga to? Ano ba yung mga results na yan? So, from here, you will see there's an import type. Okay? Sa import type niyan, mapapansin niyo na ano itong mga purchase sub na to, yung mga plug-in listener stats na yan. Right? So, if we go back to definitions, you will see that each of those points to a specific data type or specific interface in our function. So, hanapin natin to, purchase sub. Okay? So, pag bumalik tayo sa web, we copy this. Tingnan natin saan ba ginamit si purchase sub. So, saan siya nakikita? Find Victor. Okay? So, meron tayong 7 entries ni purchase sub. Okay? Ayan. Resulting is purchase sub. So, ano yung first impression ko dito? Ang first impression ko dito is, itong definitions na to, yung export definitions, ito yung ibabalik. Ito yung ibabalik sa'yo ng functions. Correct? Ayan. Okay? Yan yung ibabalik sa'yo ni function in the event of 1, if it's success, or 2, if it's failure. Now, if you take a look at the code, mapapansin niyo na the code itself is, basically, it only has one result. It will always be true. Okay? This is because, muna sa lahat, our goal here is to create a Swift counterpart, or the more important meat of the matter is the Swift part, diba? So in web, you have to have a way of testing if the function that you have created on the if the function that you have created on both web and Swift works in the same platform as with iOS and your browser. Okay? So in this case, we're just returning a dummy data. Okay? So now let us proceed. So this part we need. Okay? Next, okay, output is true. Okay, if it's output, then constant resulting is purchase subscription. Now, ano yung kailangan nating i-return? Yan. So from the information that we gathered earlier, ito, okay, ano yung kailangan nating i-return? API return, needed return. Alright? So, guys, anyone who anyone who knows kung anong dapat natin kunin dito sa smart data na to? Okay. The first one is first name. Okay. Next is last name. Alright. Next is ano?
Title po.
Title. Ayan. Which is user. Mr. or Mrs. or whatnot, di ba? Ano pa?
Organization.
Organization. Alright. And clearance. Ayan. So far, meron tayong 5 return. So, ibig sabihin yan, itong 5 ito ang ina-expect natin ibabalik ni function. Meron pa ba tayong ibang kailangang i-return?
Email po.
Ano daw?
ID, sir. Padalan po ID.
ID. Ito.
Tsaka email.
Right?
Apo.
Email at saka ID. So first is, okay, ID at saka email. Alright. Alright, there we go. So needed return of the function. Right. So, going back to our web interface, okay, nasabi ko kanina na itong export na to, this defines the result or the return of your function. So let's create a new one. So let's say for instance, ito, ayan. So let's create a new one. Again, copy paste. And then this time, let's rename this to API return of get user info. Okay? As much as possible, make sure that your variables are descriptive of what they actually do. Okay, para hindi kayo mahirapan sa future. Next. Okay, ano ba yung mga kailangan nating data. So number 1 is first name. Okay. Copy paste. Okay ba? Ganyan si Michael mag-copy paste. Isang buong hilera. Alright, last name, title, okay, organization, alright, clearance, ID. Teka lang. Kasi, ang initial data natin is string. Diba? Yun yung pinapapaste ko eh. However, upon looking at this information, I realized na, okay, teka lang, yung ID natin, yung value ng ID natin is not a string. It is a number, correct?
Yes.
So, how do we best replicate or how do we best implement that? Simple. Clearance, ID, ano bang data type nito
Integer po.
or number? Integer?
Int lang po ata, sir.
Capital, small letter.
Capital po INT. Wala po ba?
So, wala. So, in this case, unknown variable siya. We are currently building a web interface. Okay lang. So, let us just assume that as of the moment, it is a string. Assume lang, kasi we are just building the web interface. Di ba? So, assumption natin right now is the ID is a string, even though it's not a string. Next is email, which is also a string. Okay? Now, so API return of get user info. After defining this in our definitions, we go to your WebTS, and at the very top, we add that. Okay? We add that to the import type, okay, which will define that information, which will define that as our return function. Okay? Now, upon defining that sa import type, we go down to your function, the newly created function. Okay? And then we replace this with our function or with our return. Okay? Next. Okay. So we have here a set of data na. So what do we need to do now? We copy this and we paste it here. Ayan. Okay. Ayan lang. Double check. Alright. Control V. Next. We determine, okay. So first name is string daw. So let's say for instance, string. Last name daw is string din. So what do I need? String. Diba? Title is string. Organization is string. Clearance is string. ID is string. And email is string. Now, why am I doing this? Because these information are dummy data. Basically, it doesn't connect to anything, right? And besides, we are not concerned with the web implementation of our get profile. So anything that we return is what we return. Correct? Ang concern natin is a Swift, which will happen in a bit as long as our terminal is cooperating. Eto na. Okay. So, going back. We have defined a successful output. Right? We have defined a successful output. Now let's define a not successful output. So, as usual, copy-paste natin to dito. Okay? And this time, in order for us to know that our output is wrong or our return is wrong, okay, we put here simply string 1. Okay? Yan. For mga string 1 tayo pagka-failure ang inilabas ng web function natin. Alright. So far, so good. We have the function. We have, bakit po nagdilaw? This is not our problem. Kasi we defined it as true output. Relevante. Fix this prefer constant problem. Wow, okay. Oh my God, what's wrong with this?
String. Ay, error din pala. Nagkaka-error sa natin.
Alright, let's do this later. Okay? Mamaya na yan. Alright. So, what's next? What's next? As you can see, meron tayong options sa taas. Okay? If you look at this, that works. Di ba? So far, so good. We now have a defined input. We now have a defined input. We now have a return output. Okay? So what's next? So this one, what does this mean? So we created a constant, okay? And the constant variable name is resulting, right? Next, that constant is then returned if this is a result block, meaning if it's a successful block. If it's a reject block, then it will send this information instead, telling you or telling the function that, or telling the caller of the function na, uy, there's something wrong with your inputs, or ito yung nakuha ko sa API. Alright? Now, so far guys, may question kayo?
Wala
What
pa
if,
po.
ako po sir,
Okay.
what if,
Rizel, what about you?
what if po sir, buong data yung kailangan ko, like hindi lang yung first name? Oh.
And then you enumerate all of it.
Okay.
Okay? We're going to go, you're going to actually identify all the things that you will require. Kaya nga, dito pa lang, sa start pa lang natin, we gathered what we need to, what the function, diba? The first things first, know your requirement, diba? And identifying what is important. Tama? So yan agad ang una natin ginawa. Kinuha agad natin kung ano ba yung kailangan ko. What are the things that I need? Ano ba yung ibabigay sa akin API? Ano ba itatapon ko kay API? Okay? Next. Okay? Now, tapos na tayo dito, and our terminal is not cooperating, okay lang yan. Because our concern is Swift. Or our concern is, whatchamacallit, editing our bridge platform or our bridge, our bridge, the bridge project or the bridge plugin, that's it. Okay, so we go here, we open your in-app bridge project, okay? For the purposes of this training session, I will revert back to what I have originally created already, okay? Mainly because of two reasons. Number one, what I've already created has all the pods installed, specifically Alimorid Fire, which is used to connect to the API, okay? And secondly, it's a lot easier to demonstrate to you what we require as of the moment, okay? So, first things first, let us build this thing. Paano nga ba mag-build? Alright, CD. Okay. Open, bridge, open. Okay. npm install. CD. Okay. Tapos, NPM. It's already built. Ah, cool. Built na siya. Okay. So, since na-build na si, since na-build na si in a plugin, if it's built, then you just do this. Oo nga no. Alright, cd. Okay. Alright. Tapos, there you go. Guys, alam ko masyado mabilis yung ating discussion. Okay? Pero the thing is, kaya ko siya binilisan because sa web, that is not our priority. And so far, mauubos yung oras natin. Right? So, we now move to the meat of the matter, which is Swift. Okay? Ito kasi yung pinaka-importante dito eh. Now, so far, we were able to, okay. Wala, nagdolo ko yung mouse ko. Okay. So far, nag-freeze ang screen ko. Interesting. Okay. Alright, so far we have best way to update the bridge plugin. Yan yung isa sa mga main topics natin, right? Also not working. What happened here? Anyway, moving back. So we open our in-app bridge, okay? From our in-app bridge, we open iOS, okay? Nakakuha lang ako ng ibang mouse. Nasanay ako ng mouse. Yan. Alright. From our in-app bridge, we open our plugin workspace. Alright. This is one way of debugging our project. Or in this case, this is one way for us to interact with the plugin. The other way for us to interact with the plugin is if we are able to do this. Right? Teka lang. So, from your app repair, from your diesel repair, and once this has, if it had completed our, our compilation, okay, you should have here this. Alright? This is a built project inside your Quasar project that contains the plugin that we will edit. Okay? So, how does that look if our compilation did materialize? So, open your workspace inside your source dash capacitor folder. Okay? So, look for iOS, and then look for app, and then workspace. Open that. Now you have your diesel app for iOS. And if you're going to look under pods, okay, you have here development pods. Okay? Now, under development pods, if you click on this, you will see there capacitor and in-app bridge plugin. Okay? Now, if you click on this, you will now have the files that you will need or you will require to update. Okay? Now, this is actually a better or a more direct way of updating your pods, or in this case, the in-app bridge project because kung anong gawin mo dito, okay, it will reflect here. It will reflect on your, okay, it will reflect or it will update on your in-app bridge plugin. To demonstrate that, okay, let's go to the plugin folder. Okay, you will see there that these are the exact same files that we will update. Now, if I were to update, let's say for instance, this one, I will put here Michael's update. Okay, if I control S that, and if I go here, you will see that the file also updates. Okay? So far, nagigets nyo?
Yes po.
Alright. Now, ano ba yung kailangan nating update? Or what's in this that we have to fix? Okay? So, the very first thing is, teka lang, ihilang ako ha? Sorry. Yeah, I'll be back.
Sige po.
Sige po.
Can you hear me?
Yes po.
Yes.
I can. Alright. So, going back. Doing this in Xcode allows you to update two things. Okay? One is a plugin, and number two, the diesel repair and how Swift will interact or how your function will interact with the API and vice versa. Okay? So how does that work? First, how does tawag dito? All right. So how does that work? So first we need to define the interface hook. So remember earlier in Visual Code, okay, we did two things, right? The first one is we created an entry in your definition table, okay, and then we also created a function or what you call this. We also created a means for that function to return, or we identified what return are we expecting from the function, correct? Now, on Xcode, it's also almost almost the same, but with some major complications. So first things first, let's go to our in-app bridge plugin or PW plugin M file. This is the module file. So in Xcode, there are in Objective-C, basically, we have either the header file, the H file, the M file is the module file, and then the Swift file is a .swift file. Okay. Now, in this case, plugin 4 or capacitor 4 allows us to mix all two languages together, Objective-C and Swift. The advantage of that being that you can define your header in Objective-C and at the same time communicate with it or communicate it using Swift. So first, what do we have to do? We have to create what we have created on the web interface. Okay? Same process. Oh my God, there's a problem. Ayan oh, nawawala siya. Oh my. Yeah, that's a problem. Found a problem to the problem. Ay, nako. No one found this out.
Line 10.
Yeah, no one found this out. Wala nakapansin sa inyo nito? O hindi niyo ginalugad yung plug-in. Basta niyo lang ipinasok tas yun na yun.
Nakita dun po.
Anong ginawa niyo? Ba't hindi niyo sinabi sa akin? Iyan! Ako, kuruting ko masingit niyo. Anyway, moving back. So, what is missing here? Okay? We're deviating. Alright, anyway, moving back. Since we're deviating a bit, let's fix the problem. Okay? Okay, it's a good thing that Michael has... Sabihin na natin na Michael is always backing up all the things that he makes, all the things that he does. Wala tuloy. All the things that he did. Oh my God, nawala siya. But nawala siya. Ah, yeah, here we go. Yeah, correct. So, we have a backup earlier, right? Quasar, old Quasar, okay? Enough bridge, iOS, okay? And then, plug in. Ano yung kailangan natin? There we go. Di ba? This is our backup. So, if we go here, we put this at the very, very, very end, and then we determine, is user subscribed? Ayan. So, ano yung nawala? Purchase subscription. So, if we put purchase subscription here, okay, and then recompile the project, it should work na. Okay, guys, let's make this a 1.5 hour training. Okay? Dahil feeling ko magtatagal tayo ng sangkatutak dito. Dahil this part is very important and at the same time, it's a bit complicated than what is, what was originally intended. May ganun si Michael, ano? What is originally intended. Okay. So first things first, let me just see which one is which. Ayan. Open this. Editor. Control V. Control Z. Control V. Control quit. Cancel. Control W. Okay. Tapos, let us recompile this. Okay. Ayan. Okay. Alright, iOS. Plug in. Today. In a bridge. Plug in. B. Replace. So now let's double check. Okay, nandun na yung purchase subscription. So, we recompile the whole project and crossing fingers that this will not end up like this. Alright. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Okay. So as usual, we delete what is not required. Is dock, nodes, package dock, source capacitor, padlock, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I believe that's it. Yeah. Bye-bye. Okay. So let's rebuild our project. Okay? And hope for the best. Right? Guys, galaw-galaw naman dyan kahit paano. Hopefully this will, diba? Hopefully this will fix our problems. Otherwise, we're talagang crazy. Ayan. Uninitiated folder. Okay. So So while this is initiating, let's use the old folder, okay, so that we could, continue our discussion. Ayan. Okay. Alright. So, kanina, okay, earlier today, correction. When we were discussing the web interface, okay, where is the web? Postman, you don't need this anymore. Visual Studio, that we need. Okay. So, guys, recap. The first things that we did is on updating our web is that we first defined the function. We then created the function, and then we defined and implemented the return of that function. Correct? In Xcode, or basically it's the same scenario, only that we're going to deal with different parts of the project. Right? So first things first, define. We need to define where to create the function. In this case, going back here, okay, earlier today we used the purchase subscription as our prototype for our function, correct? The prototype being that this function, this purchase subscription, is able to intake data and output data, correct? Now, doing the same process, we copy paste this, okay? Copy, paste, and then we change the function's name to to what we have already defined on our web. Okay? So far, malinaw?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Next, definition ng output. In this case, definition ng input ang importante sa atin, right? So, we then go to our Swift plugin file. Okay? This is your Swift language. Okay? The beautiful Swift language na napaka-bias ni Michael. So, we collapse it so that we have a better understanding or better overview of the functions that we have to update. In this case, I have arranged the plugin to be orderly, that this section is all that you have to update when adding a new function. Well, one of the things that you will have to update in adding a function. Okay? So, from this, you can see that, okay, saan ba nanggaling ito? Kinuha ko to, or I copied this function from purchase subscription, correct? Sagot?
Yes po.
Okay. Now, same process. Control C, Control find, Victor. All right, there you go. We copy the whole function again. O, di ba? So simple. This is because, bakit?
Para mag-create po ng function para kay get user from API.
Okay.
Error na naman.
Restore. Yeah, error na naman. So anyway, moving back, that is not important for us right now. Okay? So, we create this because it is our template. Okay? Always remember that pag kumuha ka ng template sa isang lugar, dapat kapareho din ang kukuhanin mo. Otherwise, you're going to have a very, very difficult time matching the two things together. Okay? So, template is here. You copy this, and then you paste it here. Okay? Ayan. May paste na tayo. Next. Ano daw?
Palaki po ng konti.
Okay. How's that? medyo malinaw-linaw diba? O kailangan ko
Okay na po.
palakihan?
Iba.
Oh. Okay na, 18. Okay. So, 18 anyos. Nako, baka makulong ako niyan. Alright, so, moving back. Alright, so, what have we done? We have duplicated a function. Now, next thing we need to do is rename the function to the function that we have created earlier. Okay? So, ayan. Next, since we copy-pasted this information and we only change the name of the function, it is only similar that we don't change any aspect of the function's header. Diba? Ito, leave it alone. Okay? I leave it alone dahil hindi na natin ginalaw yan. Next. Okay, next. From the code below, you will see that, okay, so si Michael nag-define ng product ID, tapos yung call, meron siyang get string na value. Okay? Value. Ngayon, how do you correlate that to your web interface? Why did we correlate it to the web interface? Simple. Because the two things are technically joined to the hip. Meaning, if you're gonna look at this, okay, nag-define tayo ng function, you copied a function, you copied the function purchase subscription with an option that takes in a value of type string. Tama? A value of type string. So, in this case, that value is now the locator, or basically it's the name of the variable that will hold the value of what you want to get from the function or from the past variable to the function. Yes? So from here, ang gagawin natin is we have to update our Swift function, this one, so that ang magiging return value, ang i-interpret niya na past variables is email and endpoint. Okay? So let's do it. Email, go here. Okay? So, alam naman natin yung let statement, right? Lahat naman tayo may kumare na pangalan is let Narciso, di ba? So, let's create a variable that will define our email address. Okay? And then, we get the value of that email from call. Bakit? Kasi this is the past parameter. Sabihin na natin na this is a container. Yung call na yan, that is a container that will hold this information. Ito, di ba? Options. Okay? That variable name na call will have the options of your email and your endpoint as one of its return values to you, for you to use. Okay? So, call.get. Ano ba yung get natin?
Yung email.
Una, tinype ko si get. Napansin agad natin, or napansin ko agad na, okay, ito is mga data types. Tapos, itong mga data types na to, get int, tapos may default value siya, di ba? So, what's the best way for me to define a variable na pagka mali yung dinefine sa web, sa akin, hindi magka-crash si app. Tama? So, from your experience using my plugin last time, nag-crash si app dahil hindi kayo nagre-return o hindi kayo nagpapadala ng email address. Correct?
Iya po.
Purting kayo singit niyo dyan eh. So, by doing this, we are providing the function a fallback mechanism to anticipate null data. So, ano ba yung ating return dito? Email. So, here, ano ang key natin? email. Default value natin, since string siya, gawin natin siyang no@email.com. Ayan. Next, we make it as optional. Ayan, I kind of forgot kung ano yung ibig sabihin ng exclamation for optional yan. Next. Okay? Copy-paste. Okay? Next is API call, endpoint. So we define another variable that is named endpoint that will have a value of https oh my god, nakalimutan ko na. Ito. Ayan. Tama. //google.com. Okay? So, kung hindi ka magbigay ng endpoint, ang ibibigay niya endpoint na default sa'yo is si Google. Alright? Next. So, dito pala sa first line of code, naintindihan agad natin na, okay, ito yung call kung saan mag-a-assign ako ngayon ng variable, kung saan pwede kong i-assign ng variable ng email at endpoint yung ipinarsa ko sa function. Correct? Next. Teka, ano to? So, ibig sabihin nito, ito yung i-return ni app in the event of bumili ako ng something kay Diesel. Pero hindi natin kailangan yan, di ba? We don't need this information. So, we stow this away for a moment. What do I mean by stow this away? Let's just comment this out because this code will become our code reference in the future. Okay? So, stow away muna natin yan. So, ngayon, let's go back to our requirements. So, kailangan tayong mag-execute ng isang function that will call on this API call, okay, that will pass this information and that will pass the email address, the body, as a dictionary, and also the endpoint, it will call on that endpoint. Tama? Sa kabutihang loob, meron na tayong function ngayon that allows us to call in a HTTP request. Okay? Teka, ito ba yun? Ayan nga, double check ko lang kung ito yung this is the old way. Alright. Quit. Okay. So go back to developers, Quasar. Hindi natin kailangan si old. So, tapos na tayo kay old. Punta tayo ngayon dun sa new. Okay? So, let's go to the in-app bridge. Ito. Ayan. So, as usual, we open this. We edit. Okay, we edit what we need to edit. Ayan ito. Tapos, we simply ways are old. Okay? Ano ba yung pinago natin dito? Ito. Okay? Control-C. Control-V. Replace. Control-C. Control-V. We don't do that. Open with text editor. And then we open our Diesel app. Ayan. Alright. So, going back. Okay. So ngayon, meron tayong get user information. Teka lang ha. Ayan. So, going back, we have di ba? So now nakita ninyo kung ano yung mali ni Michael. Tama? That I used a direct string without even anticipating what? A null value. Only because I told you guys to remember to pass something to the function, right? So in this case, let us update it to what we have been doing na earlier. Okay, so let us ito. So far, meron tayong dalawang function. Di ba? Oh. Alright. Now, because we are passing two values to our API, the next thing we need to do is we need to create a means of communicating to the API, which is another function. So, from this point, makikita nyo na, ay, ano to? Diba? What is this? Ano yung ginawa ni Michael na to? So first, we find, nasan ba tong get user information from API? So, this function will allow you to receive the data, okay, from the API, okay, and format it so that ang return niya will be similar to your web output. Okay? But first, tingnan muna natin saan ba nakuha ni Michael itong get user information from API. So let's jump to that. Okay? So this is another function that we have created or that that is defined. Okay? Huwag na natin full screen. Mahirapan sila. Ayan. So, this function, remember earlier, Rizal, sinasabi mo na, uy, paano natin di-define to? Paano natin di-define yun? Paano natin di-define yung get or post?
Yes.
Okay. Ito yun. Only that this function will serve a singular purpose. To call in a specific API that will receive a specific data type from the API. Okay? So, let's begin. First things first, I've created a function that's named get user information from API, which will use, okay, let's create our own API, a new API instead, or a new function para may continuity tayo sa ating discussion. Okay? So let's create a function that will interact with our API. So, function get user data fr API. Okay? Next. What does the function require? Una is yung user's email address. Correct? Pangalawa, yung URL or yung API URL natin. Right? Okay. Now, I'm going to expose you to a new thing which is called a completion handler. So remember, sa web natin meron tayong promise request. Tama? Oh, wait. Hello guys! Can you
Yes,
hear me?
sir. Ay, akala ko.
Okay, magsagot-sagot kayo, muliti kayo. Okay, so sa web, meron tayong promise request na kung saan nagre-return siya ng ano?
Ng data po.
Hindi, nagre-return siya ng dalawang bagay, either resolved or rejected. Tama?
Yes po.
Aha. Now, a completion handler in Swift allows it to be more flexible in a sense that you will be able to pass data and receive data as a completion handler. Ibig sabihin, as the process is completed, let's say for instance, tumawag siya sa internet. Internet mo is edge pa. So basically, napakabagal niya, right? So sa kabagalan niya, ang tagal niyang makareceive ng data. Once na receiving data, inabot siya ng 1 minuto. So tingin mo ba kung wala kang completion handler, magtatagal ang function mo ng 1 minuto? Hindi. It will return nil because wala siya nakuha. Whereas a completion handler will wait for something to finish before passing you data. Okay? So, we copy this completion handler settings or completion handler entry, and we put it here. And, okay. So far, meron ka ng function that has an input of email and URL, and also meron siyang completion handler. Next, we define first is the header. Okay? Guys, ako sa inyo ha, may mga steps na nga to ha, may mga instructions na nga dito kung paano gagalawin kasi hindi nyo pa nagalaw ha. Ayan, copy-paste. Tapos, the body. Diba? Alright, so, let me explain. Ano daw?
Ginalaw po namin. Bale, ginalaw po namin.
Oo, ginalaw nyo. Nirate nyo ang code ko. Anyway, going back. So, this is how you define a body. Okay? So, the body is what you will push to your API that will contain specificities of the API, of what the API will require as an input. Tama? So if you go to Postman, okay, tingnan natin. Okay. If you go to Postman, we go to your body. Our body has an input of email. So on Xcode, you have to define a variable that is an array of any, meaning this array or this variable can hold either a string, a boolean, a number, or another data structure depending on the required needs. Okay? So this is how you define a variable in Xcode. Next. So far, alam na natin paano mag-define ng header, alam na natin kung paano mag-define ng body. Next is calling the API. Okay? So first, these are the parameters that Alamore, okay, requires. Okay? Basically, what you just have to do here is copy-paste. Walang isip-isip to, guys. Just copy this whole thing, this whole block, paste it onto your function, because hindi ko na-explain kung anong, kung bakit natin kailangan i-copy-paste all, because it's tedious, and besides, it's basically just a put in place, what you call this, you just have to update the function that will call your API. Okay? So, anong ginawa natin? So, itong si API, yung URL natin, ipapasa natin dito kay get user data. Okay? Ilalagay natin siya dito sa start ng function. If you're going to type this manually, kung halimbawa ganun kayong katsaga, okay, Alamore file.request, ayan na siya. Diba? URL conversible, yan. Handler.request, ayan. You can see here that it has a couple of parameters. Okay? And these parameters are already defined here. Yes? Now, let's discuss each of these parameters and how to update them. One, API URL. It's the URL that it's going to call, okay, and it's going to pass all your data accordingly. Number two, what method to call? Either post, get, okay. If you were uncertain of what you're going to use, then just type in dot, and you will see there a lot of HTTP requests or method requests. Okay? Ano yung nakalagay, ano yung nakadefine sa ating Postman? Post. Right?
Yes, po.
Yeah. So, we select post here. Okay na siya. Next, parameters. Parameters here is our body. Okay? Copy-paste. Next, encoding. Siyempre, ang alam natin is itong si JSON or itong API natin, ayan. Ayan, di ba? It is, ang body niya is raw or basically it's a JSON construct. Correct? It has a value, it has a key and it has a value. Okay? That's the reason why it is here JSON encoding.default. Or, pwede rin tayo maglagay ng JSON encoding, encoder, serialization, maraming options dyan. Although for now, let's stick with that. Okay? Let's stick with JSON encoding.default. Next, header. Header natin is ito. We defined it, it's done. It's already a done deal. Question. Okay. Magtataka kayo. Bakit ganun? Ayan o. Anong difference niya dito? Diba? Answer, wala. You can actually define this request body as if you are also defining the header in this format. How? Ganun lang. Okay? You replace this and then yung email is ito. Okay? And then, yung email address is ito. Basically, it's the difference here is that this one is you are doing it one key at a time, whereas this one you're going to do it in bulk. Okay? Now, going back, after you've defined the first part of the request, the next part is the response. Ang response object natin, okay, meron siyang parameters na data response, tapos API get user data. Ano to? API get user data. So, going back to our web interface. Okay. Going back to our web interface, nag-define tayo ng output na ilalabas ni app. Tama?
Yes po.
However, hindi tayo nag-define kung ano yung ibabato sa atin ng API from the get-go because our web interface is a dummy. Itong Swift na to, or itong interface natin for Swift, hindi siya dummy. It will trigger a push to the API and it will receive a JSON or it will receive a data packet containing our desired output. Okay? Yung desired output natin is ito. Ito yung makukuha natin direct from Swift. However, we have to define each and every single one of these because Swift or Alamorifier, okay, ito. Ito. Yan. Okay, will expect, okay, please take note of this. Alamorifier will expect a certain data to be passed back from to it by the API. If he is not expecting anything, or if it's not expecting the data that the API will throw, Alamorifier will drop that information. Translation. Kung halimbawa, nag-define ka ng data, tapos yung data mo, inilagay mo lang is ID. Yung laman ng data mo is an array of, by the way guys, how do you see this? How do you see this bracket?
An array of data, sir. Ay, salamat.
It's an array of data structure that has data within a data. Basically, para siyang Russian nesting doll, right? So, it has a data. Sa loob ng data niya, may panibago pa siyang data type or data structure within a data structure, right? Basically, it's a tree of information, okay? So, how do you make it so that pag naka-receive si Alamori ng information from the API, that it will map the information that you define or that is defined by your API here. Okay. Ito yung medyo madugot. Okay. And I wish that we have more time. Pero I will discuss this. I will discuss this to you today. Okay, para hindi tayo malito. So, before that, kailangan muna natin i-define yung data na yon. Okay? So, let's go back to our initial creation ng function. Okay? So, nakapag-create na tayo ng function that will call the API. Correct? Nakapag-define tayo ng pangalan. Technically, dalawa yung pangalan na define natin, right? Una is, nireplicate natin kung ano yung ginawa natin kay web, okay, which is, gumawa tayo ng function that will receive two variables. Tama? Tapos, gagamit tayo ng function that is specially built to communicate with APIs, which is the Atom modifier. I've already imported that as a pod. You don't have to worry about it. But all you need to understand right now is that that is the function that we will use in order to access our API. Now, we have created that function here. Ito. Okay? However, kung ikaka-copy-paste lang natin itong nasa baba, magkaka-error ka. Kasi, okay, pansinin niyo guys, yung response niya, meron siyang data response na type API get user data. Saan yan? Okay? So, this API get user data, this is a custom data type or data structure that was created in order for us to map yung ibabato sa atin ni API. Let's go there. Ayan. Okay. So, ano nung una ninyo napansin? Okay? So, the base response protocol states that, ito, sa taas pa lang. So, base response is a protocol that will have a message and it has a get function that will get a string data type, and it will assign it to message. Okay? Now, we have created, based on the API's return, okay, this is what we are expecting the API to give us, correct? Now, sumagot ko yung hindi, magdadire-diretso na ako. Just go back to the recording, alright?
Okay po, sir.
Now, this, what you call this, this data structure, okay, dito natin siya ngayon i-define sa mappings natin. Okay? So now, guys, question, nakapagbalat na ba kayo ng sibuyas?
Yes po.
So sa pagbabalat niyo ng sibuyas, it is a layer upon layer of balat. Correct?
Yes.
So, in order to approach this from that point of view, you simply have to map the topmost values first. So, ito yung ating JSON return. So, how do you do that? We have three things here. Meron tayong message, status, at saka data. So, sa message natin, natural string yan. So, message is ito. So, imamap niya ngayon, we are telling the function or we are telling the app or the mapper, okay, the mapper, that this message na makukuha ko sa API, ilalagay ko siya sa variable na ang pangalan ay message. And then you define the variable here as a string. Okay? Next, status. Okay? True. So, ibig sabihin, boolean yan. So, you define a variable here that is of type boolean and has an initial value of false. Okay? So, let's assume for a moment, ibinato ni API, walang status or ang status na nakalagay sa kanya is null. Sa halip na mag-e-error si Atom modifier, ang ilalagay niyong value is false. Because that is a default value. Now, next, data. So, ano yan, Michael? Kasi si data, it's a completely different animal. Diba? Kasi ang dami niyang naman. So, we create another mapping, okay, that is associated or that closely resembles the data that we are expecting from the API. So we define another variable here or another class, another structure that contains the layer of information that we require. Ano ba yung layer na yan? Again, balat sibuya. Okay, so we get the topmost part of our onion, top na balat ng onion natin. We enumerate those, okay? We enumerate each of those and we tell Alamore na, okay, ang ID is i-map mo sa variable na ID, tapos yung ID variable, ang type niya is string. However, napansin natin na, ay, teka lang, hindi siya string, number siya. Diba? So, we define it as int. And we give it a value of 0. This is default value. Okay? Na hook or by crook, pag wala siya nakuhang ID or wala siyang field na nakuhang ID, ang default value agad niya is 0. Hindi null. Okay? That's a good thing. Because as much as possible, you don't want the app to crash merely because it received something that it did not expect. Okay? So next. Self-explanatory to, email, string, etc., etc. Okay? Oh, by the way, this is also the reason why I was asking you, oy, ano to? Is this a string or is this a date? Pero, because I noticed na, okay, yung create at is a string that can be converted into a date, so I defined it as a string. Okay? Now, question. This data, so nag-create tayo ng class na pangalan ay API user data, which contains the toppermost level or yung balat sibuyas na ID, email, created, that, etc. However, based on our initial investigation, the profile, the data pala, the data is an array of object. So how do you translate that to Swift? Okay, so you define an array using this. And then inside that open and close bracket is the data type of that array. Okay? So, just to demonstrate, I'm going to create a project, a small project that will, sabihin natin na this is just a minor deviation. Okay? But this deviation allows you to actually have a grasp of the data typing that you will encounter in the future. Okay? So, let's start. Let's define a variable first that is an array of string. Variable, let's say for instance, string array, which is a variable, which is a string of variables, diba? So, it is a string. So, ang data type niya is, it is a string, tama? Pero, it is an array of string. And, remember, kanina, napansin niyo guys, na pag ganito yung format natin ng pag-define ng variable, we allow it to have a default value. Correct? So in our example, we follow that same instance by defining it as blank. Okay? Kasi this is a variable. Now, how do you add? Simple. String array.append hello world. Diba? Or string variable string array.append goodbye world. O, hindi pa ako magpapakamatay ha, mga hayop kayo. Okay. Now, that is interacting with a variable. Let's go back to our discussion previously. So, nakita natin, okay, na itong data, it is an array of data type. So, yung data type na yun, we have to define it. Okay? So, ano ba to? Ano ba? Okay, so, within the data, nag-create tayo ng class na ang pangalan niya ay API user data. Kasi, Well, again, yun yung naisip ko at the time of creation or inception eh. Diba? Just remember guys, to have, when defining a variable, especially of this complexity, always make sure that you have a descript or your variable is or closely resembles or closely describes the function or the use of that variable to your overall project. Hindi yung parang 1, 2, 3, mimi mo. Yun yung pangalan ng variable nyo. Okay? Hindi pwede yun dahil mahihirapan kayo bandang huli. Now, ang data na to, so it is an array of API user data. So within that API user data, meron tayong profile data. So let's go back to the profile data. Nako, Michael, hindi siya array. It is a single data structure. Bakit array yung ginawa mo dyan? Ay, sorry. Hindi pala array. So, if you are defining a single data structure, a data structure, I'm hoping alam na ninyo, right?
Sir.
No, alam ninyo ang data structure na isang pinagsasabi ko or hindi nyo alam kung ibig sabihin ng data structure?
Alam naman po. Yun ang sabi.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Okay, now, how does this work? So, si Alan Modifier gets this data from our API. Ngayon, nasusundan niya na, okay, so si message, ilalagay ko siya sa variable na message. Okay? Tapos itong message na to is nakalagay siya sa data structure na API get user data. Tama? Tapos si data is an array of data structure called API user data, which is, eto siya. Tama? Array siya. Ngayon, inside that array, meron tayong profile. Yung profile na yun, it is a single data structure that contains the profile of that user. So, we have to define another structure or another class that will identify all of those items or those fields, and we map it to a variable. Okay? So far, nagigets to? Nagigets yung concept na to? Na you map, you assign, you declare.
Yes po.
Yes.
Gets? Okay. Kasi, once na nakuha niyo itong part na to, madali na yung iba. Now, going back to our discussion earlier. So now, we copy this function. Okay? Okay, copy na natin to ha. Copy paste na natin. Ayoko mag-explain masyado marami dito sa Almor part kasi this is a done deal na eh. So we copy this. We paste this here. Okay? Tapos, how do we describe this? So, I will request this API or this URL that I will use a method of post. I will have a request body, and this is my header, and my encoding, the encoding of my data will be JSON encoding default. Now, what response that I will expect from the API, okay, will be a data response of type API get user data, and if ever that I get an error or I get a null, or if ever that I have a problem accessing that URL, that I will assign that information to AF error variable. Okay? Now, and then in. Okay? What this means is that the response object, this is the response, and then this is the in. In means that in this code, I will interpret what I received, and I will forward. Get you guys. I will forward the result, okay, to my completion handler. Yes?
Sorry.
Yes po.
Okay. Nasaan yung completion handler? Eto siya, di ba? Naka-define siya sa taas. So, yung completion handler na to ay tatawagin ko to indicate that yung tumawag sa akin, itong get user data FR API. So let's say for instance, analogy, Rizel, ikaw si function na ginawa natin kanina, which is get user info FR API. Tapos si Jenny, siya yung tatakbo, para mag-i-give sa'yo ng timba. So, ikaw, Rizel, binigyan mo si Jenny ng timbang, ng ng timba na walang laman. Tapos si Jenny tatakbo sa Poso Negro or sa well or sa ilog para kumuha ng tubig. Okay? So, once na nakakuha siya ng tubig, babalik na siya sa'yo. Kasi may laman na siya or may dala na siyang information. Tama? Ngayon, pag ibinigay niya sa'yo yung tubig, yung timba ng tubig na yun, okay, yun ang tinatawag na completion handler na, okay, tapos na ako, ito na yung laman, ito na yung timba mo na may laman, okay, and at the same time, ito rin yung tawag dito na nagawa ko siya ng successfully or wala akong makuha tubig eh. Ito yung timba mo, blank yung timba mo, tapos false dahil wala akong naibigay na tubig. Okay? So, guys, gets niyo yung completion handler? Gets niyo yung concept ng completion handler?
Yes.
Ako, sir.
Okay. Now, going back. So, first, we evaluate the response result. Okay. So, ang lupalot ng daigdig ng lintik na response result na yan. So, it is returns the associated value of the result if it is a success, nil, or otherwise. So, what does this mean? Ayan ang dalawang posibleng value lang niya. Yan ang sinasabi natin na tumakbo si Jenny, okay, pagbalik niya, nakaigib ba siya ng tubig or hindi siya nakaigib ng tubig? Success or fail? Gets? So, pag success siya, okay, if it's a success, okay, tingnan natin ngayon kung ano yung tubig na ibigay niya sa atin. Is it drinkable? Is it Poso Negro? Or is it full of sand? Or is it non-drinkable or toxic? Di ba? So, ano ba yung response that value natin? Ano yung value? Okay. Is it a success? Result is success. Ayan. So, if let JSON is equivalent response value, meaning, yung JSON na nakuha ko, yung value ng success, yung response that value is equivalent to success, ibig sabihin yan, may value siya. Gets? Na, kita nyo to. Is this familiar to you?
Yes po.
Ayan, status. Ayan, data, di ba? Oo. Saan nang galing yan? Dito siya nang galing. Okay? So, ang value na yan, i-assign natin ngayon kay JSON. Okay? May third party pa nalalaman si Michael, ano? Ngayon, si JSON, una, evaluate natin, ano ba yung status mo? So, ano yung status natin sa API? Yung ini-expect nating status. True or false? Diba? Ito na dito na tayo titingin ngayon sa ibabato sa atin or possible things that the API will throw at us, which is message, status, and data. Correct? Now, dito sa part na to, ano yung status mo? Success. So, ibig sabihin, nakakuha ka ng information at ang nakuha mong information is success. So, ang i-return ko, completion handler, nasa taas, flag niya is Boolean, which is true or false. Next, ano yung string natin? Okay, actually, dapat ang ilagay ko dito si message. So, kung gusto niyo ilagay dito yung message, you can simply do this. JSON dot message. Diba? Tapos, ano yung kailangan kong ibigay sa'yo? O ano yung kailangan ibigay ni Jenny kay Rizel? Yung timba na may tubig. In this case, since si Jason ay may laman na, okay, ibigay mo ngayon kay Jason, ibigay mo ngayon kay Rizel yung API data or data type na API get user data, which is ito. In relation, ito siya. Okay, gets na. Gets na guys, kung paano tumakbo yung app.
Opo.
Yes po.
Okay, that's just part of the last, that's actually part of the last part of our app. Okay? Now, upon sending the completion handler, upon triggering the completion handler, okay, it goes back to your function, and upon going back to your function, ito ang resulting niya. So, you defined a function down here, you call the function up here, okay, mapipit mo yan. Ayan. So, ano ba yung structure natin ng function na kinarate natin sa baba? Diba? So, we created a function that accepts an email address and a URL. So, let's define that, shall we? So, we call on ayan. O, diba? And then we pass the email, we pass the endpoint, okay? And then for completion handler, ako tamad akong tao, so I just rely on other people's code. In this case, tamad ako eh. Oh, copy-paste. Ayan. Copy-paste yan. At sa pansin natin, wala siyang completion handler dito, di ba? So we do that. Endpoint. Okay. Tapos, we delete this. Copy that. And simple. O, diba? Yan ang beauty of copy-paste. Walang isip-isip. Okay. So, going back, let's just comment this out para hindi tayo magkaligtut eh. Alright? Okay? Next. So, how do we describe this? So, we call on the function, we pass on the email address and the endpoint. Tapos, now we are expecting three things from this function. A flag that says that it was able to successfully get the water, a string that describes the message, and the JSON that is the water, or that is the container of the water. Now, how do we interpret this? So, if flag is true, then first, we define it, or we get what we are required to pass back to our app. Guys, nakaka-follow pa ba kayo?
Yes po.
Okay. Now, let's go to our web function. From our web function, meron tayong, nag-define tayo ng pass parameters. Paano ba lakihan palintik na to? Guys, how do you increase the appearance? Ito na pala. Zoom in. Yeah. Ayan. Okay. So, here, we defined our return variable, or our return structure that will contain what we want from the API. Alright? Same process goes, only the difference here is that you are now fetching the result straight from the API. So, we define a variable that is of pure we define an array of dictionary with type string as its with type string. Okay. Next, we define the keys as equivalent to what we have defined here. So in this case, sige, first name, okay? Tapos last name, okay? Remember, kasi ito yung ina-expect ninyo from the web, okay? So kung anong ina-expect ninyo from the web, yan din dapat ang i-expect ninyo from Swift. Correct?
Yes po.
Unless, of course, hindi kayo nag-ano, or at least, or hindi kayo hindi kayo nag-web, okay? So in which case, you could have also ignored the web protocol or the web interface. Pero in this case, we are making a connection lang between the two platforms. Next, first data. So, we defined a variable that will hold the first instance or the first array inside data. Now, tanong, itong data na to, as you've noticed earlier, it is an array of it's an array of data, correct?
Yes po.
Hindi niyo ba natanong kay Diesel? Sir, this is an array of something. Are we to get the first or the last Are we to get the first or the last data in this array? Hindi ba tanong yan sa kanila?
Hindi po. User input. Ano po yan API po nila Gov and Josh yan.
Hindi kayo naging curious? Ano yung gagamitin natin? Kasi ito ang translation yan. Every time that something happens to the user's information, new data is added onto this array. So, ano implication yan sa development? Yung pinakaunang data na nandito, obsolete na yan. Yung pinakahuli ang pinakabago. Ika nga, first in, last out. Get? First in siya. So, kung ano yung yung huling ipinasok na data, yun ang pinaka-current na information ni user. By knowing that, maintindihan ninyo na, okay, so yung pinaka-current na user information ang kailangan kong kunin. Dahil pag ang kinuha ko is the first object, or basically the first information na nandito sa tuktok, ang makukuha ko ay ano ang makukuha ko?
Kung sino yung nasa sir. Pero yung...
Hindi. Ang kinuha ko is first object, ang makukuha ko is obsolete data. Kung ang parameters natin is every time na nag-update si user, itong profile na to is itong data block na to, kasi di ba it's an array of something.
Yes po.
Kung every time na ina-update ni user yung data niya, mag-append lang sila ng panibagong information dito. So yung pinakaunang value ng data array mo is panis na, is obsolete.
At first, yes po. At first, sir, tinanong po talaga namin yan doon yung sa gumawa po ng API niyan. Kasi yun nga, kailangan pa namin mag-map dahil nga naging array yung instead na object na lang yung i-return niya.
Ano sabi nila?
Ganyan daw po. Diba Jen, sabi nila ganyan daw talaga. Yun ba yung, tama ba yung pagkaalala ko? Diba inano natin yan na dapat object lang.
Kasi Rizal, take note ha, they know how to create a singular data type dun sa profile. It's not an array. Ngayon, kung sasabihin nila, ay ganyan talaga kasi yung data ganyan talaga please define ganyan siya talaga. Dapat naging inquisitive kayo. Dapat natanong ninyo na, this structure indicates that data will be updated as data is updated by the user. So replication is an instance here. Ayun, di ba? May ganung mga factor si Michael. So anyway, going back. So, nahin natin si data. Okay? Ito. Ngayon, na-receive na natin si data. Right? Upon receiving the data, gumawa tayo ngayon ng dictionary that contains the first name, the last name, kung ano yung gusto natin makuha. Okay? Tapos, inilagay natin dyan kung ano yung ibibigay natin kay app mismo. In this case, kay Diesel Repair. Next. Okay, next. we call on our post function, which is, ito yung sinasabi kong listener. Okay? Now, why do I put that there? Two reasons. Number one, ito kasing call result, ibig sabihin nito, si function na tinawag natin sa Swift is bubuhayin niya yung tumawag sa kanya para sabihin na, hoy, ito yung result na gusto mo. Okay? Also, I have put in here the notification center, yung listener natin, so that in the event of na, let's say for instance, hindi nag-respond to ng tama, that our diesel repair would still be able to respond to the data asynchronously transmitted via the internet. Okay? Now, question. Currently, may questions po ba kayo?
Ako po sir, sa ano po sana, dun sa may response, yung, di ba po sir, possible po ba yan yung, di ba string to string po yung response nyo sa itaas? Eh, for example, hindi po string si ID, tapos integer siya.
Okay, good question. Answer.
String to...
Yes.
Okay po.
So you change the data type from string to string to any. Okay? So basically, itong definition natin ng response is now a string to any. Tapos, itong si ID, let's say for instance, 1 yan. Okay? 1. Ngayon, pag itinapon natin yan, by the way, you don't do this as often as possible. This needs to be set in stone. Okay? Anyway, going back. So, pag itinapon natin yan, pabalik kay Quasar, okay, response, ano mangyayari? Okay. Ano mangyayari? Okay. So, eto. Halimbawa, ID is int. Yan, integer na lang. Okay? How will you handle that on your end? Kasi yan yung response natin kay API. How will you define it so that si ID, once nasa loob na siya ng Quasar environment, will be defined as a number? Kasi right now, you guys are only exposed to string.
Yes,
String to string lang. So ngayon, assignment na ninyo yan sa Quasar dahil wala na ako alam sa Quasar. Okay?
Okay po.
Now, going back. The reason why ginawa ko string yan is for you guys to have simplicity. Okay? Now, moving back. So guys, any questions?
Ay, ano po sir? About po pala dyan. Like, di ba po
What do
sir,
you mean about dyan?
yung about po dyan, for example po, di ba, kunyari si profile may ID. Eh, kunyari, for example, kukunin din po namin yung ID ni profile. So, maggagawa na lang po kami ng, for example, profile ID, yun po yung ilalagay namin dyan. Pwede pong kahit ano yung i-define namin po dyan, basta ano.
As long as you have parity, as long as pareho yung data structure na pinapasa ninyo from one place and another.
Dun sa suite.
And another. Gets nyo? And another. Kasi, remember, sa web interface, nag-define tayo ng ID dyan.
Opo.
Kung mag-i-insert kayo ng panibagong ng field dyan sa data type niyan, yun dyan sa export interface na yan, make sure na yung i-return ni Swift will also have the same name, will also have the same key, and will also have the same data structure or data type, and the value of that data type to be returned back to you. Yes? Kung number yan, number dapat yan. Kung string yan, string dapat yan. Because if your Quasar is expecting a data type of string, tapos pinadalhan niyo siya or ang return data ninyo is number, ano mangyayari kay Quasar? Magka-crash. Tama? Kataasan yan, Katasan yan, null ang makukuha ninyo. Because hindi niya pwedeng i-interpret ang string versus integer. Yung part na yan ang mabusisi in terms of mapping your API's request. Pero once you get the hang of this, you should now be able to communicate effectively with their API. Tanong, ano yung nagbago sa kanila ngayon? Ano yung kailangan mong ilagay sa header or kailangan ilagay mo sa body para lang makapag-communicate with Diesel's API?
Yung sa may string po.
Ha?
Ay, yung sa body po.
Ano?
Yung sa
Nagpadala ba sila ng panibagong postman?
Wala naman po, same pa rin.
Ay bakit sinasabi niyo may panibagong kailangang idagdag sa body? Kung wala naman kayo na-receive na bagong postman sa kanila. Kumuha kayo, magtanong kayo, maghumingi kayo, di ba? Humingi ba kayo? Kasi may bago silang update sa postman. May bago silang update din sa kanilang mga API calls na kung saan, kung hindi nyo nakuha or kung hindi nyo napapasa yung data na yon, hindi talaga kayo makapag-communicate with their API.
Ay, ano po kasi may API pong bagong, bale sa, iba po yung nagko-communicate sa gawa ng API. And sina Josh and Gav po yung nagbibigay sa amin ng API.
Kaya nga, ang tanong, nag-ask ba kayo ng updates? Ano yung nabago at ano yung kailangan namin baguhin? Yun ang itanong ninyo sa kanila, okay? Get that information and decode that information so that you get the information again. Right now, what we experience here dun sa postman ko kanina is unauthorized, meaning may nawawala tayong data na ina-expect ng API na hindi natin napapadala. Either it's a key, it's a token or something, or it's a set of string that indicates that you have been a verified user. Yan ang wala sa atin ngayon. Yan ang wala sa inyo ngayon. So find that, get that, code that, so that you will be able to reconnect with their API. Importante ang Postman because Postman will guide you to passing the correct data to their API. Okay?
Yes po.
Okay, sir.
Alright. With that said, 2 oras na tayo nagkukwentuhan dito. Okay? So here's what I want you to do. Ano?
Sir, yung kanina, sorry. Yung ano po, yung sa obsolete data. Ang ibig niyo sabihin na pag halimbawa nag-update si client ng API siya, update ng data structure or update ng halimbawa yung first name in-update niya.
Kailangan nyo rin update yung mapping nyo. Yes?
Ano po yung sinabi niyo na na kapag may bagong update tapos magiging obsolete na yung update, medyo nawala po yung kanila.
Pag may panibagong update si client, yung API niya, may ginagdag siyang bagong requirement sa body. You have to update your code. Alam nga naman na yung code din hindi mag-move, di ba? Dahil pag hindi nag-move yan, maiiwanan niya ng panahon. So you have to update the body or the header or whatever they require for you to put into your requests. Okay?
Okay. Kasi hindi pa kasi siya, parang pinag-iisipan pa niya kung may profile or wala eh.
Paano may profile o wala?
Yung yung sa profile po dun sa...
Kaya nga humingi kayo ng postman sa kanila, hihingin niyo sa kanilang postman na pinakabago. Kasi doon pala makikita ninyo na, okay, ito pala yung kailangan kong idagdag. Ito pala yung nawala, ito pala yung bago. So code it, get it, request it from them, get it from them, code it, apply it, run it. Diba? Ganun na siya. Okay? So, yan ang number 1 priority ninyo ngayon. Mamayang gabi, gambalain nyo sila, kuhanan nyo sila ng postman na pinakabago, pinaka-updated or katasan niya, pag hindi sila magbigay, sabihin nyo sa kanila, kayo pala yung blocker di ba? Kayo yung blocker, kaya hindi kami makamove on. Pero pag nagbigay sila ng postman, doon pa lang sa postman, guys, pinakita ko kanina sa inyo kung paano itahi si postman kay web, si postman kay bridge, kay web, kay Swift. Tama?
Yung sa postman po na sinabi, meron po kami nun sir, yung dati po na ano, yung API ay
Dati yun. Iba na ngayon. Kaya ngayon muna gawin ninyo, kuhanin niyo muna sa kanilang bago kung may nabago man. Di ba? Yun yung number one priority niyo ngayon, guys. Get what's new, if there's new, okay? Kung sabihin nila wala na bago, then start coding what you have. Kung may nabago, get that first, then code what you have. Gets ba? Or are you
Yes,
still nawawin pa rin kayo?
Okay na, pinag-aantay lang.
Okay na?
Apa.
Nag-aantay lang ng ano?
Nag-i-email na din po si Gab doon kina Robert and June ata. Kasi nagtatanong din siya. Kasi unauthorized din po ngayon yung API.
Okay. Yan. Once they reply back, sabi nila, okay, ito yung mga changes, ito yung mga bago natin kailangan i-apply. Get the postman, understand it, Remember yung module na yung steps na nililista ko kanina? Just follow that and hindi kayo mawawala. Okay? Tandaan, ang buhay ay isang malaking step. Sa isang malaking step, may mga maliliit na step. You have to do the baby steps in order to be a manly step. Okay? That's talagang crazy wordings from Michael. From yours truly, Michael. Okay? Now, meron pa akong kliyenteng kailangang i-meet. Guys, ano pang question ninyo?
Meron pa po. About po dun sa... Sorry po. About po dun sa ano sir, sa mapping. Is it possible po na if ever list of arrays po siya and need po namin yung list of arrays, kailangan pa po ba pa rin namin imamap or yung data na lang po mismo yung kukunin namin na ipapasa? Possible po ba
Okay.
yun? Yes po.
Nakita ninyo ang difference between an array and a data structure and a data type. Yes?
Yes po.
Yes, yun? How to define an array, how to define a data structure, how to define a data type. Diba? Parang large, medium, and small yan. Yung small is data type. Yung medium is data structure. Yung large is array. Ganun lang ang laro sa buhay, guys. Pagka sinabi nila na, okay, yung data na yun, hindi na yung array, that's the data type, so remove the braces. Yes? Ako, alam niyo guys, kinapa ko yan noon. Hindi ko rin alam kung paano mag-code sa Swift, pero because of art, because nakita ko yung mga codes nila before, naintindihan ko agad, okay, these are how things correlate to one another. Ang software, it's a bunch of codes that relates to each other, that connects to each other. Lahat yan may isang bituka. Okay? Kailangan lang ninyong i-trace yung bituka na yun, maintindihan nyo agad kung anong ginagawa ng software, kung anong ginagawa ng language, and it's actually a building block in understanding a language. Okay? Ano pa ang question? Question pa?
Sir, yung listener po. Sir, yung their file.
Hindi muna natin i-discuss yung listener. Dahil una, wala na tayong oras. Pangalawa, that is not part of our discussion.
Opo.
Oo.
Yung their file din po, sir.
Ano daw?
Yung DER file, yung
You don't touch that.
Hindi
don't
po
touch
kami
that.
nagtatouch that. Pero di ba po, yung isa lang pong API po yung inanunod doon. Nilagay.
Kasi yun lang naman yung binigay ninyo eh.
Opo. Paano?
Masyadong complicated yung part na yun and I can't discuss it right now. Di ba? I can't discuss it right now. But, yeah, go ahead.
Sige, but po.
Sige, go ahead muna. Ano
Yun
yung
po
sabihin
kasi.
mo?
Kasi po, di ba, matatest po niya UI niya gamit yun.
Okay. The reason why gumawa ako ng DAR file dyan or certificate pinning, it is because Alamore Fire has that function and that function is implemented in code. Pag wala yung certificate na yun, hindi ma-verify ng Alamore na valid si API mo. So mag-error at mag-error siya. Okay? Ngayon, kung sasabihin ninyo na, ay, Michael, nabago yung aming API endpoint, hindi na siya, okay. Doon sa DAR file ninyo, kung mapapansin ninyo, user repair pinning, if you open that, if you click on that, it actually indicates this common name. Pag nag-scroll down kayo sa baba, you will see that this is the URL that is attached to that. Okay? And this is the certificate of that website. And this certificate is valid until when? Nasaan ba yan? Blah, blah, blah. May date yan dito eh. Anyway, you will see that the moment na lumampa, ayan. Not valid before, not valid after. Okay? So yan. Kinuha ko yung certificate from their website. Okay? I-google na lang ninyo kung paano kumuha ng certificate from a website. Okay?
Update na. Okay.
Okay, ano pa? Ano pa?
Wala na po.
Ikaw, Rizal.
Hindi, doon lang po sana sa ano, sir. Hindi po ako na ano doon sa, yung may required init mapping po ng ano, API get user data po kanina na tanong ko.
Ulit.
Yung sa API get user data po na may required init mapping po, yung may mga mappable.
What about?
Pwede pong pabalik doon, sir. Saglit.
Ayan, what about?
Ayan.
Kita mo ba yung screen? Nag-refresh ba yung
Yes
screen
po.
ko?
Yes po.
Ah.
What if, sir, ano lang po, hindi na namin kailangan, kunyari, ganyan yung from line 778, gusto lang namin kunin yung 774 na data.
Guys, again, this is a required thing because this information is what their API is sending. If any of this information is false, you will not get the succeeding information.
So,
Meaning,
in short,
meaning,
okay po.
meaning, kailangan talaga ninyo i-map lahat yan dahil after yung ma-map yan, saka pa lang kayo pwede mag-cherry pick ng data. Okay? Gets ko yung sinasabi mo, Rizel.
Okay.
Tinatamad ka. Ayaw mo mag-map ng isang katutak na data.
I mean, hindi po kasi,
Ayan, ayaw mo i-map yan. Gusto mo i-map lang yung data.
I mean, hindi po, binase ko lang po kasi sa
Yes.
kailangan na
Ang
data
sagot dyan,
dun sa,
Okay.
na-test na
Yeah,
po
ang
kasi.
kailangan ng data. Pero, okay, pero ang problem kasi is, what if, for instance, may nabagong data? Tapos, in the future, hanap pa yun ng hanap ng bagay na wala naman pala dahil hindi pa ninyo na-map. Or, worst case scenario is, itong mapping natin, ito, let's assume for a moment yung API profile data. Yan yung required natin or yan yung gusto niyo makuha. Diba? Tapos, nasan yung mapping natin? URL. Ito. Okay. So, balik tayo dito. Right? So, gusto mo lang kunin sa profile mo kasi gusto mo mag-cherry pick on the onset na agad. Hindi ka nag-cherry pick after the fact. Gusto mo before the fact pa lang, na-cherry pick mo na. Okay? That's actually possible. Walang impossible sa computer programming actually. We could have skipped this. Okay, from my point of view, I could have just, okay, so hindi nyo kailangan ng step, tanggalin natin yung step. Oh, walang masama dyan. We can remove those things, di ba? The app will still map what is indicated on your mapping function. Walang problema doon. Cherry pick eh, di ba? Pero tanong ko sa'yo ito, what if in the future gamitin yan? Tapos kayo, who is that, where is that? Di ba? The point of this mapping table is for you to, one, anticipate what is being pushed to you. Number 2, understanding what the data is all about. And number 3, how the data correlates to your requirements. Tanong, paano kung halimbawa, sabihin nila, okay, kasi hindi na kami gagawa ng function, nandun na sa isang function na yung kailangan yung data. Kayo naman, pamutulog. Saan function yun? Anong function yun? Diba? That's the reason why, as much as possible, you map what is given to you, okay? Because in the future, it will be a required data. Lahat ng binibigay ng API, hindi yan walang kwenta. Diba? Kasi kung walang kwenta yan, di ba rin pwede si client, right? But the thing is, that does not follow. Gets you guys? Gets you ba?
Gets naman po namin, sir. Na-testing lang po kasi namin yung plugin nyo po. Actually, nasundan na po namin siya. Na-test na din po namin dun sa get na API. Kaso nga lang, list of array siya. And yung nakukuha niya sa mapping kasi, yung first, yung first array lang nakukuha niya. Kaya naisip ko.
Dude, teka lang. List of array?
Apa.
An array is already a list.
I mean,
or you're saying na it's an array of data. Kasi there's no such thing as a list of array. It's a list of data.
Ayun po.
Okay. So ibig sabihin niyan, it's a data type, it's an array of data type.
Yes po.
Okay, kasi una sa lahat, walang tawag dito, napakahirap i-implement ng an array of array. It is possible. I've already done that before. Pero an array of an array poses a big problem when the array of an array contains data of dissimilar nature. Gets nyo? Doon kayo magkakalintik-lintik. Let's say for instance, it's an array of two different data types of another data type. Doon kayo magkakalintik-lintik. This one simplifies your life. Ano ba yung tanong natin? Ano nga ba yung tanong mo? How do you declare that? Yung ba yung tanong mo?
Parang how do we declare po na hindi na siya imamap, parang ganun po.
Ay nako. You have
Pero
to map it.
ayun nga po,
Because
kailangan
ito
po
yung makukuha. Kasi this is your variable that will hold the response of the API. Variable pa lang yan, wala pa tayo sa data storage ha. Iba pang usapan yung data storage. Ibig sabihin data storage, it is your database wherein these will now be put into internal storage. What's the relevance? Pag binuksan ko si app, pinlose ko si app, tapos binuksan ko siya ulit, ayaw ko na mag-login. Dapat naka-login ako. That's the time that you're gonna do internal storage. Right now, whenever I open the app, diesel repair to ha, when I open the app, what happens? The app always asks for a login. So, ibig sabihin niyan, wala kang local storage. Yes? Diyan kayo magkakalintik-lintik in the future. Right now, let's deal with getting the data muna, saka na yung storage. Okay?
Okay po.
Okay. Question pa ba?
Okay na po ako, sir.
Ayun. Now, ganitong gawin natin. So yun, priority ninyo ngayon is una, kulitin sila, anong nabago. Pangalawa, follow the instructions, and of course, you're gonna receive a copy of this video. Okay? Ibigay din nyo kila Gab and kila Bani yan para may patunay na dalawang kalahating oras tayo nagdadala dito dahil i-charge ko talaga ito. Okay? Tapos, pangatlo, if ever that you need further consultation, please first consult this video on how to do things inside the in-app purchase, inside the bridge. This is for API calling lang ha. The reason for this training is for us to have a better understanding on what needs to be done and how to make a new function to interact with a given API call. It has nothing to do with creating a plugin dahil iba pang usapan yun, and that creating of a plugin is talagang difficult and talagang hell for me to go through because it was Again, brain hemorrhage ako nun. Okay? Pero at least kinaya ko, di ba? Kung kaya ko, kaya din ninyo, guys. Yun nga lang, just be patient. Patience is a virtue. Okay? Ano pa? Ano pa?
Goods na po ako, sir.
Jenny, come to daddy.
Okay na. Okay na po.
Okay na. Oh, Rizal, okay ka na rin.
Okay na po,
Alright, so
sir.
guys, thank you for your time. I'm going to email or I'm going to send the link later. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
So
Thank
with
you
that
po.
said, ako'y talagang late na. And my client will kill me. Alright, bye-bye.
Bye
Thank you
po.
po. Bye.
Diyos ko